Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the No BS Zone. I'm Bernie Goldberg. I'm here with my friend in the Rocky Mountains, or they're close enough, John Daly. How you doing, John?
Good, good. It was -3 outside this morning, Bernie, so it's a little crisp out there.
So you're not delivering newspapers this morning on your bicycle?
That's correct. That's correct. I'm staying inside.
Well, I'm glad you're okay. I'm not totally okay, and I'll get to that in a second. It has to do with the pardons. Everybody watching us knows about the pardons by now. Joe Biden pardoned his immediate family just as he was walking out of the Oval Office for the last time, and Donald Trump pardoned the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Let's start with Joe Biden. I think it was a reprehensible decision to pardon his immediate family preemptively, people who were not charged with any crimes, but maybe he thought would be, for good or bad reason, might be. Peggy Noonan, who I worked with at CBS News and is now a columnist for the Wall Street Journal, said it was an act of someone who doesn't care anymore. I think that's a good point. I'm not sure Joe Biden cares anymore. I think he figures his legacy is going to be written by liberal historians and he'll be okay. I don't think he will be. A lot of his friends say Jimmy Carter left with low approval ratings, but look at his approval and likability numbers now. Well, Jimmy Carter became, or always was, a humanitarian. And when he left the presidency, he built houses for poor people. That's why his poll numbers went up. Joe Biden is finished. I mean, pardoning your immediate family, pardoning your son is understandable. I've said that before. But lying to the American people about how you wouldn't do it, lying to the American people how you would not pardon people preemptively and then you do it for your immediate family. No, he cemented his legacy. As one last quote from Peggy Noonan, he took a torch to that possibility in his last official act. He did. He's finished. Liberal historians may go easy on him, but they can't ignore what he did. Now I'm going to tell you why I feel uneasy about some of the reaction. I wrote about, and you have, John, about President Trump's decision to pardon the January 6th people who he calls patriots. They're not patriots. No reasonable person would call them patriots. Even MAGA people, I suspect, know they're not patriots. But many of them excuse the pardons. I want to read you two reactions. One of them from somebody, one of our regulars, who said, "Get over January 6th." Well, Donald Trump didn't get over January 6th. He pardoned people who attacked the Capitol. More importantly, and this is what I want to talk about, he pardoned people who attacked police. And we got a reaction from somebody named Johnny Peo. I know Johnny Peo. That's not his real name. That's why I'm going to talk about it. Johnny Peo is a good person, a decent person. Johnny Peo is who I consider a good friend. I know him personally. And he said, he said it was the right call. Johnny Peo, it wasn't the right call. You could never, and people who support Donald Trump can never say the Republican Party is the party that's tough on crime, that cares about being tough on crime and being tough on criminals, not when Donald Trump pardoned people who attacked police. If you want to excuse the rest of the January 6th pardons, we can disagree, but okay. He pardoned people who were in the Capitol and they shouldn't have been, okay, but not people who attacked police. That's inexcusable. And I'm just taken by good people like my friend Johnny Peo. I'm just taken by how they could excuse it. It troubles me. John?
No, I agree with everything you just said. You know, it's amazing to me. I mean, in addition to people that attacked police officers that day, I mean, you had seditionists, actually convicted seditionists, who were put away 18, 20 something years, they had their sentence. Well, they weren't pardoned; they had their sentences commuted. But they are out there now free, publicly vowing retribution against the people that put them away. The prosecutors, the judges. It is extraordinary, and it's we're talking about comments we saw in the comment section. I saw under that same column, someone said, that was someone who did take the side that pardoning these January 6 people is bad, but not as bad as the pardon of the January 6 committee members. The pre-pardons that Biden gave to these people. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I mean, so Bernie, you and I, we were against these preemptive pardons from the beginning when they were being floated by Biden in his administration. Speaking specifically of the January 6th committee, it was interesting to me. I don't even think Biden honestly cares about these people so much, and I don't think any of those people actually asked for pardons. Some outright said they didn't want a preemptive pardon. My suspicion is that Biden and his team looked at, the very public threatening remarks that Trump had made about some of these people, and he figured, I could shape this into a retribution defense that I could then apply to my own family members. So all these pardons are bad, and I see people comparing, well, this one's worse. I'm like, they're all so bad. I don't know.
That's the point I want to jump in on. I'm not going to play the game about which was worse. Johnny Payo mentioned, well, what about the Antifa people who got away scot-free? Well, some did, some didn't. Some people served time, which is something Trump supporters don't like to acknowledge or even notice. But I'm not going to say which is worse. They're all bad. That's all I care about. As a matter of fact, the only preemptive pardon I'm in favor of, or was in favor of, is Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon, to get that in the rear view mirror. America at that time did not need a former president being brought up on charges and possibly sent to prison. So he pardoned Nixon preemptively. Good decision. The only good preemptive decision I could think of. Let's move on to the second topic. Donald Trump took away Secret Service protection to John Bolton, to Mike Pompeo, his former Secretary of State, and a third person who was an envoy to Iran. They were all tough on Iran. Iran has threatened to kill John Bolton. There's a hit on John Bolton. Now, how low do you have to be, if Donald Trump is listening, how low do you have to be to take protection away from people who are under threat for doing what you ask them to do, to be tough on Iran because they disagreed with you on this or that or the other thing? You have to, a president of the United States has to be better than that, and better than me talking about it. John, you've written eloquently about this. Why don't you move on from here?
Yeah, no, just to repeat a lot of what you said, these three people, Bolton, Pompeo, Hook, this is a serious threat of assassination. This isn't just, these people have prices on their head put there by the Iranian government for their involvement in taking out Qasem Soleimani. I'm probably butchering that name, but he was the leader of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard. This happened during the first Trump administration. Trump brags about this operation all the time. He talks about taking out Soleimani. Like you said, there was an actual assassination attempt on Bolton because of it. Someone was charged for that crime. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, he's the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, said, I think it was just Sunday, that he reviewed the intelligence on this and has determined that the threat of assassination of those men is just as strong today as it was a few years ago. When Biden came into office, he renewed that Secret Service protection detail for those guys who were all critics of his. I mean, and they still are critics of his. Trump, on the other hand, said no. And I think this is what retribution looks like, which Trump ran on. This is the first step. This was an easy step for him to do. I do think it's funny. I've seen a few, I've asked some people who don't seem to mind this or don't think it's a big deal. What is your defense of him doing this? Like, well, it saves money. We're trying to cut back on government expenses. I'm like, okay, because that's what Donald Trump is known for. The $7.8 trillion man is, oh, well, we're going to really trim some costs here. And I'm like, that's just ridiculous. I mean, this
What
whole
troubles me about all this, John, Donald Trump doesn't surprise me anymore. I thought he was finished when he said there were Muslims on the rooftop across from the World Trade Center when there were no Muslims cheering. I thought he was finished. I'm going to write about this, by the way. I thought he was finished when he said John McCain wasn't a hero because I like heroes who aren't shot down. I thought he was finished when he started shaking and made fun of a journalist who had a physical disability. I was wrong on all of them. I was just wrong on everything when I thought he should, any other politician would be finished for pardoning January 6th people those who attacked police. Just let's limit it to that group. He's not. We're talking about different things already.
Can I ask you something else about pardons, Bernie? And we did go past that, but I did want to get your take on a couple things. So we talked about some of the pardons by both of them, the family members. There were also some other bad ones involved there. Biden granted clemency to 2,500 nonviolent federal inmates. Some of them, as it turns out, were actually violent individuals. Just based on the charges, though, they were identified as nonviolent. One was actually murdered 2 people. Donald Trump pardoned the founder of the Silk Road. That's a website that facilitated hardcore drug dealing and other serious crimes. That individual also hired hitmen to kill people, so he's now free as well. So, do you think, just seeing all of these pardons now between both Biden and Trump, do you think would you like to see that pardons, that power just removed entirely from a president, or really severely restricted in some way?
You can't do it congressionally. You can't add something on to the pardons that are outlined in the Constitution. The president has unlimited, unaccountable power to pardon anybody he wants, anybody, for any reason. It's not the way it should be. I don't like it. I certainly don't like preemptive pardons in almost all cases. If you want to go through a whole rigmarole of getting the Congress to approve it and then 3/4 of the states to approve it, okay, that's not going to happen. I want to go back to the people who say Donald Trump wants to save money, or that the people who say Joe Biden pardoning violent criminals is worse than what Donald Trump did. I'm going to speak to Donald Trump supporters. Can't you say that Joe Biden was a terrible president who did terrible things, whose Afghanistan withdrawal was just horrible, whose inflation policies were just, who says his economy was great when it wasn't, a man who was delusional, who shouldn't have just even thought about running president? Can't you say he's terrible in all those respects and also acknowledge anything that Donald Trump does wrong? Because I think this is the heart of it. I think this is the heart of it. Donald Trump supporters will not budge on anything he does wrong because they think it's giving ammunition to Democrats and Biden supporters in particular. It isn't. It isn't. I don't like anything Joe Biden did, almost anything. I can't think of anything I did like, actually. But that doesn't mean I have to approve things that I don't like about Donald Trump. I wish more people listening to us could see my point on that and at least think about it. I'm not saying I should get you to change your mind. Just think about what I'm saying, especially my good friend, and I consider him a good friend. I hope he thinks it's a two-way street. I know he's a decent guy. Johnny Peo, please consider what I'm saying. I'm going to see him. We're going to have dinner in a few weeks. Please consider it. I want to move on to the third topic, which is related. Donald Trump has said that fear is the way to deal with power. If you want to have power, you have to have people afraid of you. I understand his point. He's not the only person who said that. Nancy Pelosi acted that way. LBJ acted that way. The people listening to us have no reason to be afraid of Donald Trump. You can say Donald Trump's did something wrong and he's not going to penalize you. He's not going to track you down and find you. So don't worry about that. It's Republicans in Congress that trouble me. I know that profiles in courage are, I'm quoting myself here, which I'm not sure you're allowed to do. Profiles in courage are hard to come by, but cowards are a dime a dozen. I know that people in Congress, a few have spoken out against pardoning people who attacked police on January 6th, a few, and I give them credit. I like them, but most have not. I understand that they want to be team players. I get that. But the reason they don't speak out is they're afraid of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the one, not me, who said that fear is how you use power. They're afraid of Donald Trump. They're deathly afraid of what he can do to their careers. They'll find somebody who more to his liking, who will run against them in primaries. It just brings me down to think that so many Republicans, because I'm not voting Democratic anymore, they don't represent my values by and large, that so many congressional Republicans are so afraid of Donald Trump that they won't stand up to him. That's why I'm not a Republican anymore either. And why, this is on me, not on anybody listening, why I am so sick and freaking tired of politics as it's being played in Washington these days. Why I want to just throw my hands up and say, I'm writing about other things. As a matter of fact, my next column is going to be about TV and sex. If you like sex and TV, read my next column. But I'm so tired of the cowardice of the decision to pretend Donald Trump is better than he is. I'm just tired of it, John. You take it from here. You could even sign off. I'm just tired of it.
No, well, first of all, Bernie, I think you writing about sex is going to drive subscriptions through the roof. So I got to get out there and advertise this. So people are going to want to hear about this. But seriously, what you're describing, though, it's not new. This has been going on for almost a decade now. Just to sort of recap, Trump was a lifelong Democrat until about 5 minutes before he decided to run for president as a Republican.
Exactly.
Once he won, every lifelong Republican, people who had been in part of the conservative movement, and for some cases in decades, anybody who opposed him on pretty much anything was suddenly deemed a rhino. And Trump began purging them from the party. He has worked to get a lot of such people primaried out of office, and he's been pretty successful at it, even when it meant handing winnable seats over to the Democrats, by replacing people who could have won a general election with MAGA hardcore candidates who couldn't. But I mean, that's that. Almost every Republican who stood on principle against Trump is now gone. There's maybe one or two left, maybe a few more than that. But the remaining Republicans, everybody else, they've seen what he has done to the party, they've witnessed it, and they know that if they displease Donald Trump, their political careers will likely be ended. We saw during the impeachment, how initially, behind the scenes, you heard of all these Republicans who were going to vote to impeach Donald Trump in 2021. They were not only just worried about their political careers, they were worried about their public safety. They were getting threats. They were getting, for the idea of them defying Donald Trump in this way was what kept a lot of people, made a lot of people change their votes and vote no for impeachment. And I think all of this is very bad for the party, and I think it's bad for the country. A lot of good, smart, patriotic people who have helped hand the country a lot of conservative wins are now gone from public service because of this, and they've, in a number of cases, been replaced with very unserious people who are more interested in becoming political celebrities than actually doing their jobs. It's tough. As someone who spent a lot of time in the Republican Party, we both did, but I did a lot of volunteer work. I did a lot of work for congressional races back in the day, to see what has become of this party, to see these people who I had a lot of faith in either get pushed out or have to completely change who they were and what they believed in to stay in the Republican Party. It's not a good thing.
Let me end with a word about Senator Lindsey Graham. I used to like him. He said the right things as far as I was concerned. And then he seemed to be one of those people who was afraid of Donald Trump and covered for Donald Trump when Donald Trump did or said stupid things. Lindsey Graham was on one of the Sunday talk shows, several of the Sunday talk shows that I watched. And he was asked point blank what he thought about the January 6th pardons for people who attacked police. And he said it was a wrong decision. He said Donald Trump was wrong to make those decisions. I was surprised, pleasantly surprised. And I wondered, what is Lindsey Graham thinking? Is he not going to run for re-election? Does he think Donald Trump will look the other way? Will Donald Trump look the other way? I don't know, but I wish there were more people, even people who have in the past covered for Donald Trump, who will find their backbone, find their character, and just speak up only when he does things you think are wrong. And you can criticize Democrats all day long, that's fine with me. But when Donald Trump does things that are wrong, please, please speak up. And then I'll come back to the Republican Party. But I can't until then. Not that anybody really cares about my one vote, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned just to add on to that, what you said about Lindsey Graham, you had put this wrote in one of your columns that about how J.D. Vance, really less than 2 weeks ago, I believe, was out on national, television saying, of course, Donald Trump's not going to pardon people who committed violence that day. He was asked about that statement just last Sunday again, and he completely changed his mind. He says, you know what, it's the way the, prosecutors.
How could they, look, I'm not asking anybody to commit political suicide, but how could you look in the mirror? How could you consider yourself a man or a woman in a woman's case? How could you have any self-respect when you do something like that? I mean, I get the team player part. I get that he's your boss. You're only the vice president. But I couldn't do it. And not that anybody would want me to be their vice president or anything else. I didn't do it at Fox when I criticized Trump, knowing it was going to cost me. I don't think I'm better than anybody else. I just don't. I get it. I don't like it. I don't want to preach anymore. I want to say goodbye. Everybody watching us, we appreciate your being there. Please, please, please tell your friends. The more people we have, the more influence we have. John, any final words?
No, I think that nails it. I think it's sometimes, it's a little hard to hear some of the things we hear from some of our subscribers. I always appreciate people offering their honest thoughts in the comment section. I think a lot of our subscribers do get what we're doing here, and they, even if they don't agree with us, they appreciate, our consistency, intellectual consistency, being honest with them. The thing is, both Bernie, you and I are conservatives, but we also just don't like the BS. We like to just be honest conservatives, tell people what we really believe. And we know that's a lot of people don't like that when we say, things about Donald Trump that they don't like or they don't want to be said. But, we're here to be honest. We're here to tell you what we really think. We're not trying to juice subscriptions by saying things that we don't believe. So that's a sort of a reminder of that I'll throw out.
One last sentence, literally one sentence. The reason we do all that is because we have respect for you, the audience. If we didn't have respect for you, I'd tell you anything you want to hear and get more subscriptions. We could use more subscriptions. I'm not going to do it that way, though. I have too much respect for the audience. On that note, adios, everybody. See you around, John.
Take care, Bernie.